All right. So as mentioned, my name is Arianna Willett. I work for Twilio. I run their security risk trust and compliance group. And I'm here to talk to you today about moving security from a cost center to a revenue generator. So I'd like to start, and you can see this, right? Perfect. I'd like to start by talking about language. So French is the international language of love. I'm having internet issues, so hold on. The official language of the World Bank is English. Surprised they have an official language. That was news to me. Thank you, Wikipedia. The international language of business is money. So bear with me as we go through some basic business fundamentals so I know we're all on the same page. Businesses are in business to make money. If they do not make money, they die and go out of business. And so businesses either want to make money or save money, aka cut costs. This is a recent public Twilio announcement. You'll notice it's about money because that's how businesses measure themselves. You'll also notice that we as a company are growing a lot, and I happen to be hiring. So if you know anything about security compliance and want to hang out with developers, come chat with me after because I would love to hire you. Anyhow, so we're talking about businesses measuring themselves with money. This is an income statement from 2005 from a random business. It is from 2005, but luckily accounting never changes, so this is still up to date. You'll notice the most important pieces, if you can read it, it might be too small, are the fact that every single line is either a revenue or an expense item because businesses measure themselves in money. I'll repeat it a couple times. I want it to stick because that's the rest of the presentation is about. And this goes even deeper than the business itself. Each of the different departments within a business measure themselves with money. Finance is measured on how well they manage money. Sales is measured on how much money they bring into the business. Marketing is measured on how much money they bring to sales to bring into the business. Operations is measured on how much they save the company on their expenses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until we hit security. And here is how we measure security. We've got vulnerabilities from cross-site scripting and buffer overflows, modularity, encryption, authentication, logging. Here's another one that doesn't actually have any measurements. It's just got buckets. But we've got web gateways, mobile security, mobile data protection, IDS, IPS, DOP. Here's another one. It's super small. I'll run through it. We've got vulnerability scan coverage, baseline defense coverage, time to incident recovery, patch latency, number of incidents detected. Here's another one. We've got protection scores, detection scores, response scores, network perimeter protection scores, mean time to containment metrics, and everyone's favorite, security event true positive rates. I think, or at least I hope, you get where I'm going with this. None of those measures have money in it, which means that we're not speaking the same language as the rest of the business. So I was told not to put this up in case anyone got offended, but I think it's a really good point, so I'm going to leave it in there. Hopefully no one's offended. We need to stop communicating about security in ways that mean nothing to the rest of the business. We talked about how businesses need to either make money or cut costs. For some executives, also known as budget grantors, security does not do either of those things. It doesn't make the business money, and last time I checked my budget, it sure as hell does not save any money. But here's the thing. Security does make a company money. It's just indirect. And so what we need to do as security professionals is start measuring how we make a business money and make sure that people know about that. So there are methodologies like FAIR that advocate for measuring risk in dollars. Big fan of that. This talk is not about measuring risk in dollars. It's about measuring the benefits that security brings to an organization and putting that in dollars. So there are 3 strategies I want to talk through today. Number 1, how we're going to be tracking revenue enabled, how we should track revenue protected, and how we should track future potential revenue. And I think you'll notice, we'll go back really quick, all of these things are dollars, in dollars. They're going to be talking to security's ability to increase sales or decrease costs. And this is important because it allows executives to make better investment decisions. A company has limited resources in the form of headcount and budget to go around. And we've been asking executives to make decisions between things like, on one hand, purchasing an email security tool, and on the other hand, adding $15 million to the bottom line by acquiring another company. You'll notice that the executive is asked to compare apples and oranges. One choice is a nebulous concept, and the other is a quantified benefit to the business. So making security investment information comparable to other departments within a company will allow executives to compare apples to apples when they look at investments for the future of their business. So let's jump into how we can provide those hard numbers and start with tracking revenue enabled. This one is an activity. It's very easy. Please raise your hand if you have ever been asked or heard about this happening. Yes, everybody has vendor forms. So my group at Twilio is responsible for filling these out. And every time I get this question, there's a part of my soul that dies a little bit. And then there's a part that rejoices a little bit too, because hearing this means that our customers care about security, or at least they would like to project the image of caring, one of the two. I like to think the former. Using the transitive property. If a customer cares about security and your company cares about customers, fingers crossed they do, we can assume your company should care about security. So tracking revenue enabled, by point number 1, will let you prove how much your customers care, which should indicate how much your company should care about security. We should be tracking how much our customers care, so that our company will know how much they care. I just mentioned that. All of these things on the screen are evidence of security practices that wouldn't be around without us. So when we send out a vendor security form or jump on a phone call to explain security, we should be tracking that because it's evidence of how much our customers care about security. And when you track them, there's one other piece of information that's needed for the full impact of tracking revenue enabled. Surprise, surprise, it's revenue, the money. Here, Salesforce, or your CRM of choice, is your best friend. Because each time that we jump on a phone call or send out a vendor security questionnaire, we should be essentially connecting that to a deal, an opportunity. And sales loves money, so in the CRM, they're always going to put how much their deal is going to cost. Each deal will have a forecasted amount of revenue, and we should be tracking, come on there we go. We should be tracking the amount of revenue that security is supporting. You'll see that my fake security group here in Q1 has done an amazing job supporting sales, and we've helped enable $10.5 million of revenue, which is not too shabby. Keep a pin on this number. It's fake, but we'll come back to it later. The second strategy is around tracking revenue protected. This one can be pretty easy to calculate. As an example, say your company is losing $2 million a year due to account takeovers. You implement multi-factor authentication, and voila, fraud decreases by $1.5 million. Congratulations, you have just protected $1.5 million. Keep a tab in this, again, fake number. And last but not least, what revenue can we enable in the future? This is often the most compelling number to have on hand when talking with executives because it can enable future investment. And how do we track this? Who knows the future, right? most sales teams will actually track opportunities lost. And the key to tracking potential future revenue is to make sure that security is being considered within that process. So when sales opportunities are lost due to lack of security controls, we should know about that, and we should use that to create a compelling story for future investment in those controls. And those controls can be a single control, like enabling encryption at rest for sensitive data, or it can be a set of controls, like the HIPAA framework. So we'll go through an example. Let's assume you work for a company who wants to do business with healthcare companies. Healthcare companies require you to be compliant with HIPAA. So let's also assume that your company has estimated the healthcare market is worth $60 million. Thank you, business strategy folks in said company. In our scenario, one of the best ways to push for investment is to realize that we need to do a return on investment analysis. So once we do an assessment on how much effort it's going to be to get HIPAA compliant, we need to provide that to the executives. Oh, whoops. You saw where I'm going next. Let's say it takes $7 million to up-level your security controls to reach HIPAA standards. If healthcare market is worth $60 million, it takes $7 million to get to a point where you're HIPAA compliant. Bam, you've enabled $53 million of future revenue. Take a bow, walk away, everyone cheers, it's a beautiful day. So, if you've been following along, at this point, my fake security group, in Q1 alone, I know, we're pretty good, has enabled $10.5 million in sales. We've protected $1.5 million in money, and we've opened up a new market worth $53 million. And again, these numbers are 100% fake. I made them up while I was making this presentation. I made the numbers easy so that the math was easy for me. But this revenue enabling story is the story that we should be telling about security. We no longer should be the gloom and doom people that just show up to talk about problems and ask for large sums of money to fix them. We need to be showing how we're enabling business. So a quick recap. We need to start tracking revenue enabled. We need to track revenue protected. And we need to track future potential revenue. Security is a priority for businesses nowadays, and we need to start communicating in ways that the business understands. This will help bridge the gap between a security issue and a business issue. At this point in time, those are the same thing. So let's communicate in terms that everyone understands so that we can compare apples to apples and obtain the resources that we need to implement proper security practices. So the kind folks at BSides picked this presentation to be presented to all of you. However, the reason that I wanted to give this presentation is because I'm not an expert in this topic. It's something that we've been exploring. We've done some of this at Twilio. Some of it's worked really well. Some of it's worked fine. But if you've done any of this, if you've used it for different practices, if you've used these practices and they've failed miserably, I would love to hear about it and kind of chat about it, because I think this is something that we need to move forward towards together. And I'd like this to be a community discussion. A super thanks to all of the images that contributed to this nonprofit and educational presentation. And again, I am Arianna Willett. I do security at Twilio. If you'd like to get in contact with me, here are my internet things that you can reach out to. And I'd also like to chat afterwards if you would like. So I am good. Yeah, if we have any questions.
Yeah,
or if we're out of time maybe.
Yeah, we have plenty of time
Great.
for the Q&A
perfect.
session. So, I mean, does anybody have a question? Okay.
Hey there. It's not so much a question as it's a thank you. You've managed to take a topic which could be quite boring to different audiences, governance, risk, and compliance, and make it quite compelling and quite exciting. I feel rejuvenated about my job.
Fantastic.
So thank you.
I wish I had planted you in the audience. That's so nice. I appreciate it.
No, cool. So
Would you like to come to my next talk?
Potentially, sure. Are you going to be hanging around after this? Because I do
Yes.
have some notes to
Yes.
exchange with you.
Absolutely.
About this. Cool, thank you.
I see one more. Yeah.
I think there's some over here too. Okay. Just kidding. Sorry, folks.
Hi.
Hi.
So I was wondering if you've tried to analyze the potential savings for the company in terms of when you patch vulnerabilities or when you close security holes, what is that gaining you in what you could have potentially lost if there'd been an incident that came from that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that's actually one of the things that we're trying to start doing now. It's very difficult to do at scale, so it's not in my talk because I didn't have enough information to feel comfortable explaining it. But yes, we are trying. It's been a challenge. It's been interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I believe we have one more.
We get one up front.
This is a question kind of in light with the recent events with Congress and Facebook. And so how do you quantify, or I guess you're trying to monetize this thing, but sometimes you're in a business where the people who are logging, I don't know what Twilio does exactly, but if you're a social network, people coming in for free, they're really the product that you're selling to advertisers, and that's where you're getting your money. But that product is their personal information, and now we're starting to find out the ramifications of, selling that information off, making it easily available to not just people who want to sell you something, but also political actors. And how do you quantify that? How do you deal with that how would you emphasize security to your board in that kind of situation, which may not be really a monetary. In fact, it may mean that you have to subtract revenue in order to deal with it or to deal with government regulations that arise out of that problem. And that's the essence of my, it's kind of a broad-based, I don't know if you can answer it. I don't know
It's
if
really
you've thought
light
through
and
it.
easy to answer.
Is it really? Okay,
No,
good.
No, it's not.
I try.
Let's see. I do not have personal experience with that. Twilio is a business-to-business company for the most part. And so we haven't gone into topics like that yet. There are, like I said, practices like FAIR that do have processes or ways to try and quantify that. I'll defer to the experts there. No, it's a great question. I wish I had the answer to it.
So I have a friend at another company that I will not mention, but he was telling me at a party one time that at his company, they figured out a way to make the additional security, like for example, HIPAA compliance, a value add that customers pay extra for. So rather than just have it quantify it like that, it's a checkbox item that encourages customers to go up to, from silver to gold kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Has Twilio looked into actually pulling out security and making it something that people explicitly pay extra for the HIPAA compliant portion versus the non-HIPAA compliant portion?
Yeah, so I've got my sales pitch ready in my back pocket. You could check out the Twilio for Enterprise plan. It's made for enterprises. Unfortunately, we haven't, things like HIPAA and such, we haven't done yet, but I'm sure that the product folks want to productize that. You hit on an interesting point. So this talk is not about productizing security. It's about kind of taking the security practices that are already there and showing them in a different light to business executives. But sure, if you can actually productize security features of your platform, you end up in actually a much better position when you go and talk about the benefits of security to the C-suite, the board, et cetera. So great point.
Hi. So I had a question on the data points there. So I like the way you bucketed them out, but it sounds like it is based on having a relationship with finance to be able to pull those data points. So I guess what is the process there? I guess what are your thoughts on, one, getting those data points and making them readily available to be able to kind of put those things together?
Yeah, sure. So actually, Most of the data points come directly from, Twilio uses Salesforce, and most of those data points come directly from Salesforce. So you have the things that security is doing to support sales and enable revenue that you should have access to on the security team. And then all you really need all I use really is access to a CRM. And so that way you can get the revenue numbers that support your message.
Any other? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if when you actually total up all the value that you've enabled and protected and even the potential future revenue, if that actually offsets the full cost of your security program, including headcount, tools, et cetera.
I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you that.
Well, you didn't give us any real numbers in the presentation, so
I will say it's a compelling comparison.
Okay, that's fair.
Either way.
I worry because I actually haven't. I mean, thank you. It is a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
It's a great model, and I look forward to attempting to apply it. It's just a matter of wondering if I'll like what the answer is, or if I'll find that there are still other costs that we have to continue to bear in the security program that are unfortunately not offset by all the great work we do in these other areas.
Sure. I would encourage you to run the numbers. They've been pleasant for at least Twilio.
So any other questions? Oh.
Hi, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the details on how you implement this process to capture this information,
Oh.
even if it's not proprietary?
Yeah,
So I
no, it's
assume
not proprietary. It's something really complicated called Google Sheets. And we're moving it into a couple of different tools. So we're trying to move into Salesforce reports and move into content management systems and try and keep our tracking outside of a sheet. But mostly it's just been me and the Google suite. So thanks folks who work for Google.
Yeah, have you had an opportunity to do this for a long enough amount of time so that you can, say, project down the road, say 3 to 5 years, what the margin for the security cost would be based upon the overall revenue looking back? So that way you can forecast?
Yes. Yes, I have. So I started at Twilio 2.5 years ago, and I've been tracking these numbers for 2.5 years. In terms of forecasting, Twilio is a young company and changes often enough that my forecasts are not fantastic. But if they were any better, I would go into, looking into the future, maybe get myself a crystal ball. But it has been helpful in projecting needs for security folks and projecting needs for certain areas of the business.
Me again, hello.
Yes, hello.
Given the amount of interest here and taking a look at the time, maybe this would be an appropriate idea, and that is let's do a little GRC breakout in the common room after this.
Okay.
So if you all want to look for me or her, we'll be over there and we'll do a little breakout session.
Thank you. Yeah, just one more question and we will wrap it up.
Hi, are you tracking how long you're spending on each of these interactions at all?
I got
That's
called out on
something-
this yesterday. No, but it is on my list of things to do literally this week.
We also are trying to, I have your job at Rapid7, and we're trying to do the same thing. And we know that it would be a great way to measure, us doing a better job responding if we can get the time down.
Yeah.
And we have like a time tracking thing in our ticket system that all of us always forget to use.
Yeah, that's the problem is we have to actually track it. Yes, it's been on my radar for some time. I'm trying to implement it. Your talk this morning was great, by the way.
Okay, if you figure it out, just like text me.
Totally.
Okay, so it's time, and we'd like to show our appreciation to Arianna. Thank you for the awesome
Thank you so much.
talk, and on behalf of
Thank you.
BSidesSF, thank you very much.